The first clue that someone was making money off my lake was a stranger handing me a receipt for $1,200. It was 6:20 on a Saturday morning when the growl of an outboard motor pulled me out of bed. Cedar Hollow Lake was usually dead quiet before sunrise, quiet enough that I could hear water tapping against the cedar posts beneath my dock. That morning, I heard engines. 3 of them. I stepped outside barefoot with coffee still hot in my hand. The air smelled like wet pine, gasoline, and the rain we'd had the night before. 50 yards from my dock, 3 pontoon boats were cutting silver wakes across water my family had owned for 38 years. I pulled on my boots and walked down toward the shoreline. By the time I reached the dock, one boat had drifted close enough for me to see 6 people aboard, fishing rods in the holders, coolers under the seats, bright blue stickers pressed against the windshield. Cedar Ridge Premium Lake Access. I raised one hand. Morning. Can I ask what you're doing out here? The driver killed the engine. He looked confused, not guilty. Fishing. This is a private lake. He laughed once, then realized I wasn't joking. We paid for access. That sentence landed harder than it should have. Paid who? He reached into a plastic pouch beside the steering wheel and handed me a receipt. The paper was slightly damp and soft around the edges. Cedar Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. Premium Lake Access Membership. $1,200. Annual fee. Receipt number 87. I read it twice. Then a third time. Behind me, tires crackled across gravel. A white Lexus stopped near the HOA marina that hadn't existed 6 months earlier. Vanessa Whitmore stepped out wearing pressed khaki pants, spotless boat shoes, and sunglasses even though the sun had barely cleared the trees. She had been president of Cedar Ridge Estates for 4 years, and she carried herself like the title came with jurisdiction over anything she could see from her front porch. Daniel, she called, don't bother our members. Our members. On my lake. Vanessa, why is this man holding a receipt for access to my property? Her smile never moved. Because Cedar Hollow is a community amenity. These residents paid for lawful recreational access. I looked past her toward the new marina. Another family was unloading fishing gear. A teenager was carrying 2 orange life jackets. Nobody looked like a trespasser. They looked like customers. That's when the anger cooled into something more useful. I looked back at the receipt. Number 87. 87 memberships at $1,200 would already put the number above 100,000, and I had no reason to believe this was the last receipt. Vanessa kept talking about easements and community rights. I barely heard her. One question had pushed everything else out of my head. If the HOA was selling access to my lake, where was all that money going? Vanessa thought I was staring at proof that she'd taken control of Cedar Hollow. I wasn't. I was staring at the first loose thread in something much bigger. I folded the receipt carefully and slipped it into my shirt pocket. I wasn't going to follow the boats. I was going to follow the money. That damp receipt stayed in my shirt pocket while I walked back up the hill. But the real reason I knew Vanessa was lying had been sitting in a gray metal file box for almost 20 years. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 43 that summer, and Cedar Hollow Lake was not some investment property I had picked up at an auction. It was family ground. My father, Robert Mercer, bought the property in 1986, back when the eastern shoreline was mostly pine trees, gravel roads, and empty pasture. Cedar Ridge Estates did not exist then. Neither did its clubhouse, decorative stone entrance, or matching mailboxes. Dad spent 38 years taking care of that water. I grew up measuring summers by it. The smell of sunscreen on the dock, base breaking the surface before sunrise, aluminum tackle boxes clicking shut in the dark, Dad teaching me to back a boat trailer down a narrow ramp before I was old enough to drive anywhere else. He was a carpenter by trade, but paperwork was the one thing he treated like expensive tools. You cleaned it, stored it properly, and never threw it away because you assumed you would not need it again. After he died, I found his original deed, surveys, tax records, easement agreements, and handwritten notes stacked inside that gray file box in his workshop. One sentence was written across the inside lid in black marker. Land tells you who owns it. Paper tells you who is lying. I had smiled the first time I read it. That Saturday morning, I did not smile. I carried the box to my kitchen table and opened it while my coffee went cold beside me. I make my living repairing boats and marine engines, so troubleshooting is practically muscle memory. When an engine starts making a sound it should not make, you do not start replacing parts at random. You trace the problem backward. Fuel, air, compression, spark. Property disputes are not that different. I pulled out the original survey and flattened it under 2 coffee mugs. Cedar Hollow Lake sat entirely inside the Mercer property boundary. The Cedar Ridge development bordered the eastern side, but ownership stopped at the surveyed line. There was one recorded easement from 1994 allowing limited shoreline access for drainage inspection and maintenance. Nothing about fishing, nothing about swimming, nothing about boats, memberships, guest passes, or recreational use. Most importantly, nothing gave Cedar Ridge Estates the right to sell anything. Vanessa knew I had those records. We had discussed that easement 2 years earlier when the association wanted permission to clear brush near a drainage outlet. Back then she had been polite, almost charming. That was how Vanessa worked. She rarely raised her voice. She preferred expensive stationery, carefully chosen words, and a smile that made unreasonable demands sound like neighborhood favors. I looked through the kitchen window toward the lake. Another pontoon crossed the water, its engine humming through the morning air. Then I pulled the damp receipt from my pocket and laid it beside my father's survey. Receipt number 87, $1,200. 2 pieces of paper separated by decades, and they could not both be telling the truth. Dad had already taught me which one deserved my trust. By Monday morning, Cedar Hollow had somehow become a business, and I was apparently the last person anyone thought needed to know. I drove into Cedar Ridge Estates just after 8, following the curved entrance road past trimmed hedges and identical stone mailboxes until I reached the clubhouse. A new banner hung between 2 cedar posts near the parking lot. Cedar Ridge Private Lake Club. Fishing, kayaking, swimming, premium boat access. The vinyl still smelled new when I stepped close enough to read the smaller print. Residents received preferred pricing. Guests could purchase seasonal passes. Premium members received access to the private marina. My private marina, apparently. I took out my phone and photographed everything. The banner, the rate sheet, the blue membership stickers stacked beside the clubhouse entrance. Then I noticed a glossy brochure tucked into a clear plastic holder. I pulled one out. The paper was thick, the kind real estate agents use when they want something ordinary to feel expensive. Across the front was a photograph of Cedar Hollow at sunset. My dock was visible in the background. Vanessa had turned my father's lake into a sales pitch. Collecting souvenirs? Her voice came from behind me. I turned. Vanessa Whitmore was walking across the parking lot carrying a leather folder and a stainless steel coffee tumbler. Her white Lexus sat beneath a maple tree 20 yards away. I am collecting information, I said. Good. Then you can save us both some time. She opened the folder and handed me 3 pages printed on Cedar Ridge letterhead. The first referenced the old drainage easement. The second claimed decades of community use had created established recreational rights. The third warned me against interfering with residents exercising those supposed rights. I read it slowly. This easement allows drainage inspection and maintenance. Vanessa gave me that polished smile. Our attorney interprets it differently. Your attorney thinks drainage maintenance includes selling fishing memberships? Her fingers tightened slightly around the tumbler. There it was. Not anger. Just one small crack in the performance. The association has maintained this shoreline for years, Daniel. The lake has become part of the community. Maintenance does not create ownership. Nobody said ownership. Then what exactly are you selling? For the first time, she did not answer immediately. A lawn sprinkler clicked behind us, throwing a bright arc of water across freshly cut grass. Vanessa closed her folder. You should be careful about disrupting services residents have already paid for. Paid for. She said it like that settled everything. I thought about the damp receipt sitting inside a clear sleeve on my kitchen table. Number 87, $1,200. I looked through the clubhouse window and saw a small sign advertising premium dock access for $1,500 per season. Suddenly, my estimate of $100,000 felt conservative. How many memberships did you sell? I asked. Vanessa smiled again. Association finances are not your concern. That was the wrong answer. I went home, opened my laptop, and downloaded every Cedar Ridge annual financial statement I could access. Membership dues, landscaping expenses, pool maintenance, clubhouse repairs, legal fees, page after page of numbers. I searched for lake access. Nothing. I searched for recreation revenue. Nothing. I searched for marina fees. Nothing. Then I opened the most recent annual budget and read every line from top to bottom. The lake had generated at least tens of thousands of dollars that I could already document, yet according to the official books, lake revenue was exactly zero. Zero is a very specific number, especially when you are holding proof that somebody collected $1,200 at least 87 times. I sat at my kitchen table until nearly midnight, the blue light from my laptop washing across Dad's old survey while the refrigerator hummed behind me. I stopped thinking like an angry property owner and started thinking like a mechanic. If the gauge says empty, but you can hear fuel moving through the line, the gauge is not telling you the whole story. I built a spreadsheet. Date, boat description, sticker number, membership type, receipt number, amount paid. The next morning, I carried a pair of binoculars onto my porch and counted blue stickers without confronting anyone. 23 before lunch. By Sunday evening, I had photographed 47 different membership stickers from boats and vehicles entering through the Eastern Marina. Some numbers were below 50. Others were above 100. That meant the 87 on my receipt was not a membership number. It was probably a transaction number, and the program was bigger than I had assumed. Then the residents started helping without realizing it. A man named Scott Parker stopped near my dock because his daughter had dropped a yellow fishing glove into the water. While I helped him retrieve it with a boat hook, I casually asked what the lake program cost. $1,200 for standard, he said. $1,500 if you want dock privileges. He pulled out his phone and showed me the digital receipt. Different date. Different transaction number. Same Cedar Ridge logo. I asked whether he paid through the regular Homeowners Association portal. He shook his head. No. Vanessa sent a separate payment link. That detail made the hair on my arms rise. I wrote it down after he left. By Wednesday, I had spoken with 9 residents. 7 had paid $1,200. 2 had paid $1,500. One family had also purchased $300 in guest passes. Every payment had been made through the same separate link. None appeared anywhere in the association statements I had downloaded. I sent Cedar Ridge a formal written request for financial records related to lake memberships, marina access, guest passes, and recreational revenue. Vanessa answered 4 hours later. Not the treasurer. Not the management company. Vanessa. Her email said the program was administered through an outside community partner and therefore was not part of the association's ordinary financial reporting. I read that sentence 3 times. Outside community partner. That was new. On Thursday, a certified envelope arrived at my shop. The paper smelled faintly of fresh toner when I opened it beside an engine block. Notice of interference with established community services. $500 administrative penalty. Continued disruption could result in additional action. I almost laughed. I was not even a member of Cedar Ridge Estates. They were fining me for asking where money from my property was going. I slid the notice into a clear plastic sleeve, wrote the date on the corner, and added it to the metal file box. Then another email arrived Friday. Then another notice Saturday. Vanessa thought paperwork would exhaust me. She misunderstood what paperwork does when you save all of it. Every message gave me a timestamp. Every threat established a pattern. Every new document became another piece of a timeline she could no longer erase. By Sunday night, my spreadsheet showed more than 70 documented lake users and at least $86,000 in payments I could independently estimate. The official Cedar Ridge books still showed 0. I stared at those 2 numbers on my screen until the room went quiet around me. $86,000 on one side, 0 on the other. Money does not disappear because somebody leaves it off a spreadsheet. It goes somewhere. The first real break came from 3 words Vanessa probably wished she had never written. Outside community partner. Monday morning, I called Rachel Bennett. Rachel had handled the books for my repair business after a supplier dispute 2 years earlier, and she had the kind of mind that could look at 6 pages of numbers and notice the 1 decimal point nobody else saw. She was a forensic accountant now, working mostly on business disputes, insurance claims, and financial audits. I forwarded her the membership receipts, Cedar Ridge financial statements, Vanessa's emails, and my spreadsheet. She called me 20 minutes later. Daniel, who processes these payments? That is what I want to know. Then stop looking at the Homeowners Association first. Look at the receipt. I opened the digital receipt Scott Parker had shown me. Near the bottom, beneath the Cedar Ridge logo, was a merchant descriptor I had ignored because it looked like administrative clutter. Cedar Ridge Community Recreation. Rachel searched the state business registry while I listened to her keyboard clicking through the phone. Found it, she said. Cedar Ridge Community Recreation Limited Liability Company had been formed 18 months earlier, just weeks before the first lake membership advertisement appeared. It did not own shoreline. It did not own a dock. It did not own so much as a canoe on Cedar Hollow. The registered mailing address was a post office box 6 miles from my house. Rachel went quiet for a moment. Then she gave me the name attached to the filing contact. Vanessa Whitmore. I leaned back in my chair and listened to the ceiling fan turn above me. Vanessa had told me an outside partner managed the money. Technically, she had not lied about there being another company. She had simply forgotten to mention that her name was attached to it. Rachel warned me not to jump ahead. A business filing was not proof that Vanessa had taken anything. We needed a money trail, not a suspicion. So we built one. Residents voluntarily forwarded payment confirmations. 11 became 17. 17 became 26. Standard memberships. Premium dock packages. Guest passes. Kayak storage fees. The merchant name was identical on every transaction. By Wednesday evening, Rachel had arranged them chronologically across a spreadsheet nearly 4 feet wide when printed. Then she noticed something strange. Several payment confirmations contained a reference code ending with the same 4 digits, 4471. It appeared too often to be random. Before we could determine what it meant, Vanessa changed tactics. An email arrived from the Cedar Ridge attorney offering what he called a practical resolution. The association would suspend future lake access sales, remove the marina signage, and waive every penalty they had issued against me. In return, I would sign a confidentiality agreement, withdraw my financial records request, and agree not to challenge past membership activity. I read the offer twice. Then I called Rachel. They are offering to stop. No, she said. They are offering to make you stop looking. That distinction sat heavy in the room. Outside my window, the lake was smooth and dark, reflecting the porch light in a thin yellow line. I looked at Dad's metal file box beside the laptop, then at the repeated digits glowing on the screen. 4471. Vanessa had finally offered me exactly what I had demanded at the beginning. Quiet water. No memberships. No interference. 2 weeks earlier, I might have signed. Now there was only one problem. People do not ask for confidentiality when the truth is harmless. I did not sign the agreement. Instead, I printed it, dated it, and put it in Dad's metal file box beside every other document Vanessa had sent me. The next morning, Rachel called with a name I had never heard before. Thomas Keller, she said. He was Cedar Ridge treasurer 2 years ago. I found him in an old association newsletter archived online, standing beside Vanessa at a community picnic. By noon, I had a phone number. Tom answered on the 4th ring, and the moment I mentioned lake membership revenue, he stopped talking. For several seconds, all I could hear was a lawn mower somewhere behind him. Where did you get my number? He finally asked. I explained the receipts, the separate company, the missing revenue, and the repeated 4 digits. When I said 4471, the lawn mower seemed to disappear. Come by after 6, he said. Tom lived 15 miles west of Cedar Hollow in a small brick ranch with a flag hanging beside the garage. He was 68, retired from a regional bank, with silver hair and the cautious manner of someone who had learned that saying too much could become expensive. He led me into his dining room, where a cardboard banker box sat on the table. Vanessa told everyone I resigned, he said. I did not. 2 years earlier, Tom had noticed deposits connected to something called recreational improvements. He asked why they were not appearing in the regular monthly statements. Vanessa told him they were temporary pass-through funds. When he requested supporting records, 2 board members suddenly accused him of creating unnecessary conflict. 3 weeks later, the board voted to replace him as treasurer. Tom opened the box. The smell of old paper and dust rose into the room. Inside were meeting minutes, printed emails, budget drafts, and copies of statements he had kept while serving on the board. He slid one sheet toward me. Near the top was a name I had never seen in any homeowner report. Cedar Ridge Community Improvements Reserve. Below it was an account identifier ending in 4471. I felt my stomach tighten. The same digits from the payment confirmations. That account existed before the lake program? I asked. Yes, Tom said, but hardly anyone knew about it. Rachel joined us by video call. I held each statement in front of the camera while she compared dates and amounts against our spreadsheet. Small deposits appeared first, then larger ones. $5,000, $8,400, $12,600. The pattern accelerated around the same time the lake memberships began. Rachel asked Tom whether the reserve appeared in annual financial disclosures. He shook his head. Not after Vanessa took control of reporting. Then Rachel went quiet. I knew that silence by now. It meant she had found something. Daniel, go back 3 pages, she said. I did. Second transaction from the bottom. It was a transfer out of the reserve account to a company called Whitmore Property Consulting. I looked at Tom. He looked away. Rachel asked me to turn another page. Another transfer. Different vendor. Then another reimbursement with no description beyond property enhancement. The numbers were not random anymore. They were moving in a direction. This is not behaving like a reserve account, Rachel said. A reserve holds money for defined association expenses. This account is receiving funds nobody reports and sending them somewhere else. The room suddenly felt smaller. I had started with strangers fishing on my lake. Now I was sitting 15 miles away, staring at an account homeowners did not know existed. And for the first time, I understood why Vanessa had been willing to give me everything I originally wanted, as long as I promised to stop asking questions. By midnight, Rachel had turned Tom's banker box into a map, and every road on it seemed to lead away from Cedar Ridge and toward Vanessa. We spread the documents across my kitchen table the next evening, with Dad's survey pushed to one side and 3 years of statements arranged by date. Rain tapped against the windows while my printer fed page after page into the tray. Rachel worked from her laptop across from me, matching every transaction we could verify. We were careful about what the records actually proved. A strange payment was not automatically theft. A company name was not automatically corruption. Rachel kept repeating the same rule. Follow the transaction, not the theory. So we did. The lake membership payments entered Cedar Ridge Community Recreation Limited Liability Company. Within days, similar amounts appeared in the undisclosed reserve account ending in 4471. Then money moved out again. One payment for $6,800 went to Whitmore Property Consulting, a company registered to Vanessa's husband, Mark Whitmore. Another payment, labeled Grounds Improvement, went to Greenstone Outdoor Services. At first, that looked legitimate. Cedar Ridge spent plenty on landscaping. Then Tom noticed the invoice address. It was not the clubhouse. It was not the entrance road. It was Vanessa's home on Hawthorne Circle. Rachel checked another invoice. Same address. Irrigation work. Decorative stone. Tree installation. Then came a series of consulting payments with descriptions so vague they might as well have been blank. Community planning. Administrative support. Special project coordination. Together, they added up to more than $27,000. Do not call those personal payments yet, Rachel warned me. We need supporting documents. She was right. We requested invoices from residents who had served on committees, compared vendor names against meeting minutes, and searched public business records. The picture sharpened slowly. Some expenses were legitimate. Others had no board authorization we could find. Several were never mentioned in meeting minutes at all. By Friday night, we could document more than $130,000 in lake-related payments over roughly 18 months. At least $70,000 had passed through the undisclosed account. The number that bothered me most, though, was not the largest. It was $2,400 paid for shoreline maintenance on a date when no contractor had worked anywhere near Cedar Hollow. I knew because I had been there all day replacing boards on my dock. That invoice turned the whole story back toward the water. Vanessa had not simply discovered an opportunity to make money. She had created paperwork that made the lake look like an association asset worth maintaining, managing, and charging for. The memberships supported the illusion. The invoices reinforced it. The financial records kept homeowners from seeing the full picture. Suddenly, every warning letter she had sent me made sense. She did not need me to believe Cedar Ridge owned recreational rights. She needed me to stop challenging the system long enough for everyone else to keep believing it. I looked through the kitchen window. Cedar Hollow was black beneath the clouds, except for one distant dock light trembling across the surface. 2 weeks earlier, I thought Vanessa wanted control because she liked being in charge. Now I understood something colder and much simpler. Control was useful because control produced revenue. My lake was not just something she wanted authority over. It had become the machine feeding the account she never expected anyone to find. Vanessa called the emergency board meeting herself, which was almost perfect. By then, enough homeowners had started asking questions about the lake program that she needed to get in front of the story. Thursday evening, the Cedar Ridge Clubhouse parking lot was full before 7. I could smell fresh coffee and floor cleaner when I walked inside carrying Dad's metal file box. Rachel sat near the back with her laptop. Tom Keller took a chair along the side wall. Vanessa stood behind the long folding table at the front, dressed in a navy blazer, with 3 board members beside her and the association attorney at the far end. She opened by calling the situation a misunderstanding created by an outside property owner who did not understand community operations. That was me. I let her finish. She talked about established access, maintenance responsibilities, recreational services, and misinformation. Then she said something Rachel and I had hoped she would say. Every dollar collected through association programs is properly accounted for. I waited until homeowner comments opened. Then I walked to the microphone with 1 sheet of paper. Does Cedar Ridge sell recreational access to Cedar Hollow? Vanessa glanced toward the attorney. The association administers access, yes. And residents pay for that access? Yes. Does that revenue benefit the community? Of course. And association funds are disclosed through the financial reports homeowners receive. Her expression tightened. As required. I nodded and returned to my chair. A few people looked disappointed, like they expected an argument. I had not come to argue. I had come to let Vanessa build the walls around herself. Rachel connected her laptop to the clubhouse display. The first image was the original Mercer survey. Then the 1994 easement. Drainage inspection and maintenance. No recreational rights. No authority to sell access. Next came the receipt from that Saturday morning. $1,200. Receipt number 87. Then 25 more payment confirmations appeared, each processed through Cedar Ridge Community Recreation Limited Liability Company. Someone behind me whispered, "What is that company?" I did not answer. Rachel displayed the state filing. Vanessa Whitmore's name was attached to the company records. The room changed. Chairs shifted. Coffee cups stopped moving. Vanessa leaned toward the microphone. That entity was created for administrative efficiency. Good, I said. Then this should be easy. The next screen showed Cedar Ridge's annual financial statement. Lake revenue, 0. Then came the payment trail. Membership fees entered the separate company. Similar amounts moved into Cedar Ridge Community Improvements Reserve. Account ending 4471. I watched Vanessa's face instead of the screen. The polished smile disappeared. Is that an association account? I asked. The attorney whispered something to her. Vanessa stared at the table. It is an internal reserve mechanism. Tom stood from the side wall. I was treasurer when that account was opened. Homeowners were never given full disclosure of it. Now voices rose around the room. Not angry, so much as stunned. Rachel displayed the transfers we had documented. Whitmore Property Consulting. Landscaping invoices tied to Vanessa's address. Consulting charges with no board authorization we could locate. The shoreline maintenance invoice from the day I had personally been working beside the lake. I did not call Vanessa a thief. I did not need to. I placed the damp membership receipt on the table in front of her, followed by the official budget showing 0 lake revenue. You said every dollar was accounted for, I said. Then Rachel put account 4471 on the screen behind me. So tell everyone in this room what this account is, why they were never shown it, and why money collected from access to my property ended up there. For the first time since I had known Vanessa Whitmore, she had no polished answer ready. The silence lasted maybe 5 seconds, but in that clubhouse it felt much longer. Vanessa finally reached for the microphone and said the account had been used for special community projects, but the explanation collapsed almost immediately. Homeowners wanted statements. They wanted invoices. They wanted to know why Cedar Ridge Community Recreation Limited Liability Company existed at all, and why Vanessa's name appeared on its filing. The association attorney stopped answering for her. Before the meeting ended, 2 board members formally requested an independent forensic audit, and a third asked that Vanessa surrender control of association financial records until the review was complete. She resigned as president 11 days later. The audit took nearly 3 months. Rachel was not part of the association's audit team, but the evidence we had assembled gave investigators a clean starting point. Their findings confirmed that lake access revenue had been routed outside the financial reporting homeowners normally received, that the undisclosed reserve account had been used for transactions lacking proper documentation or board approval, and that several payments presented serious conflicts of interest. The matter was referred to the appropriate state authorities and handled through formal legal channels. I did not need to know every conversation that happened behind those doors. I only cared that the records could no longer disappear behind Vanessa's explanations. Cedar Ridge's new board canceled the lake program permanently. Membership holders received notices explaining that the association never possessed the authority to sell recreational access to Cedar Hollow. Refunds were issued from recovered association funds and available reserves according to the audit process. The blue stickers vanished from windshields. The glossy brochures disappeared from the clubhouse. The banner came down. A survey crew marked the Mercer boundary again, and the association removed the marina structures that crossed onto my property. By early fall, Cedar Hollow sounded like itself again. One Saturday morning, almost exactly 4 months after that first pontoon woke me, I carried Dad's old wooden private lake sign down to the shoreline. The paint had faded and one corner had split, but I cleaned it instead of replacing it. I set it beside the dock where he used to keep it and stepped back. No engines crossed the water. No strangers unloaded fishing gear. There was only the soft knock of water against cedar posts and the smell of pine warming in the morning sun. I had brought the gray metal file box with me. Inside were the original survey, the drainage easement, the damp $1,200 receipt, every penalty notice Vanessa had sent, the confidentiality offer I never signed, and copies of the records that finally exposed account 4471. I opened the lid and saw Dad's handwriting again. Land tells you who owns it. Paper tells you who is lying. That was when I understood the part one had missed at the beginning. Ownership had never really been the mystery. The deed answered that before Vanessa ever sold the first membership. The mystery was why she needed everyone to believe the lake belonged to the community. Once I followed the receipts, the reason became simple. The lake created money. The money created secrecy. And secrecy gave her control, right up until the paperwork caught up with her. Vanessa had spent months acting like power meant being the person who spoke with the most confidence. Dad had understood it better. Real authority does not need a polished speech. Sometimes it is an old survey in a metal box. Sometimes it is a receipt somebody forgot to hide. Sometimes justice is nothing more dramatic than one number on a bank statement that refuses to disappear.